Shavuot Tov Rabotai. We're continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Sheviit. We're up to Perek Yud Mishnah Aleph. Today's Mishnah should be Le'yu Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana Arenbayev Menuchato Began Eden Amen and Abdil ben Chaim Lechaim for the Refuah Shenema of Yonatan ben Avraham Betoch Shar Cholei Yisrael. Now Rabotai, this chapter is going to introduce to us a new topic of Shemitah laws that we did not discuss until now. In addition to the Shemitah laws that relate to agriculture, the Torah states that all loans are to be canceled at the end of the Shemitah year. Meaning, if a person lends money before or during Shemitah, he must cancel the loan at the end of Shemitah and may not later demand repayment. This is what we call Shmitat Ksafim, the cancellation of loans, and that is going to be the topic of this chapter Yud. The Mishnah now is going to begin discussing the types of loans that are canceled. The Mishnah says, Sheviit mishametet et hamilva bishtar v'shelo bishtar. Shemitah cancels every loan, whether it was recorded in a document that includes a lien on the borrower's land, or not recorded in a document with a lien, and even if it was a verbal loan that was not recorded at all. Obviously, Rabotai, we know what a lien is. A lien is a hold placed on the borrower's land, which gives the lender the right to take the land if the loan is not repaid. But in any event, the Sheviit cancels all these loans, whether it was in a document with the lien or with no lien, or even if it was a verbal loan that was not recorded at all. The Mishnah now is going to discuss other types of debts. Hakafat chanut enah mishametet. Debt for items bought on credit in a shop is not canceled because that is not a loan. And the Mishna explain, Shemitah cancels only loans and not other forms of debt. This we learn from a pasuk in the Torah. Now the Rambam points out in his commentary, even though technically shop credit can be viewed as though the shopkeeper extends money to the customer to enable him to make the purchase, this transaction is not considered a loan. It is simply regarded as though the sale is not complete until the customer pays for his purchase. The Mishnah continues, Vim asa'ah milva harezu mishametet. However, if he converted the debt into a loan, meaning the shopkeeper calculated the total with the customer and now views the debt as a loan, that is considered canceled. And Farshim explain what's the case talking about. Once the shopkeeper calculates the total amount owed with the customer, the credit is ended and the money is due. If the shopkeeper allows the customer to delay paying, it is as if he agrees to lend him the money, and that would be canceled. Rabbi Yehuda says, Harishon mishamet. Each time a customer makes a new purchase, his earlier debt is automatically considered converted to a loan, and therefore the former balance is canceled by Shemitah. And Farshim explain that it is improper for a customer to make a new purchase before paying up the previous balance. Therefore, if the shopkeeper allows the customer to do so, it is as if the shopkeeper agrees to lend the money to lend the customer the amount of the earlier balance, and therefore the former balance would be canceled by Shemitah. The Mishnah continues, Sechar Sechir eno mishamet. Ways that you owe to a hired worker are not canceled because they are not a loan. Vim asa'o milva rezu mishamet. But if he converted the debt into a loan, it is canceled. Again, what's the case talking about? The worker calculated the total amount that he's owed and now views the debt as a loan instead of a payment for a job. That would become canceled. Rabbi Yossi says, Kol melacha sheposeket b'shvit mishametet. Wages owed for any work that must stop during Shemitah, like plowing or harvesting, those are canceled, meaning if this worker's craft is forbidden during Shemitah, he will not be hired again for a while, so it's time for him to demand payment. If he does not, it's as if he agrees to lend the employer the money, therefore we view it as a loan and it is canceled. But wages owed for work that does not have to stop during Shemitah, they are not canceled, since the reason the worker does not demand payment is because he expects to be hired again soon. Therefore, the debt is not considered a loan. That is in Rabotai Mishnah Aleph. Mishnah Bet now is going to discuss a case of debt incurred on Rosh Hashanah, the first day of the new year that follows Shemitah. We have to look at a brief introduction brought down by the Art School Elucidated in order to explain the following Mishnah. Now, the introduction is like this. Each month of the Jewish calendar coincides with the cycle of the moon. Since a cycle of the moon lasts for about 29 and a half days, some months have 29 days, some months have 30 days, meaning that the first day of a month, Rosh Chodesh, can fall either on the 30th day after the start of the previous month or on the 31st day. In earlier times, this was decided by the court, based on when reliable witnesses saw the new moon. After they decided a date of Rosh Chodesh, the court would send messengers to inform everyone which day was Rosh Chodesh, and the people would then know when to observe that month's holidays. Now, the festival of Rosh Hashanah, however, posed a problem. Why? Because Rosh Hashanah falls on the first day of the month of Tishrei, but no one would know which day was the first of Tishrei until the court decided, which may have been on the afternoon of that very day. When should Rosh Hashanah be observed then? To resolve this problem, the 30th day after the start of the month of Elul was always observed as Rosh Hashanah, because it was likely that it would be declared the first of Tishrei. If the court determined that Elul had 30 days, it emerged that that day was technically part of Elul, and the next day, which was in fact the first day of Tishrei, was again observed as Rosh Hashanah. We're going to obviously discuss more at length in the Masechet Rosh Hashanah. But now, in this Mishnah's case, a group of people bought a cow for the purpose of dividing its meat for the holiday. One of the people paid for it and slaughtered it, and the others will owe him for the meat once they receive their portions. So the Mishnah says, "Hashochet et hapara b'chileka berosh Hashanah." Someone slaughtered a cow at the end of Shemitah and divided it up among a group of people on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which is the 30th day after the start of Elul. If the court decided that the month of Elul was extended, meaning it lasted for 30 days, the debt for the meat is cancelled, meaning the people who receive the meat do not have to pay for it. Why? Since Elul has 30 days, the first day of Rosh Hashanah was really the 30th day of Elul, and therefore part of Shemitah. The debt for the meat was therefore incurred during Shemitah and is cancelled. Now the Mefarshim point out the cancellation of loans takes place at the very end of Shemitah, meaning at the end of the last day of Elul. As long as the debt is incurred before the end of that day, it is cancelled when Shemitah ends. Now, even though we learned in the previous Mishnah that debt that you owe to a shopkeeper for goods that you purchase is not cancelled by Shemitah, here, where the meat was purchased from an ordinary person who is not a shopkeeper, it is cancelled. Why? Because an ordinary person does not usually sell on credit. When he sells something, he expects to be paid right away. If he's not paid right away, it's as if he agreed to lend the purchaser the money. Therefore, the debt is considered a loan and is cancelled by Shemitah. Vim lav eno mishemet. But if Elul was not extended, meaning it lasted for only 29 days, and the first day of Rosh Hashanah was truly the first day of Tishrei and the first day of the new year, the debt is not cancelled because it was incurred after Elul and Shemitah had already ended. The Mishnah now is going to discuss other types of debts. Ha'ones v'amfateh v'amotzi shemra, the fine owed by a violator, a rapist, a seducer, and one who slanders his wife. And the Mefarshim point out, a man who violates, who rapes an unmarried virgin Nahara, a girl between 12 years old and 12 and a half years old, must pay a fine of 50 shekel to the girl's father. That we learned in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 22, Psukim 28 to 29. If he seduces her, which means he convinces her to have relations with him willingly, he must either marry her or pay a fine of 50 shekel. That's in Sefer Shemot, chapter 22, Psukim 15 to 16. That's the case of a ones or amfateh. Hamotzi shemra is if a husband falsely accuses his wife of committing adultery between their kiddushin and nisuin period, and he brings false witnesses to support the claim, he must pay a penalty of 100 shekels. That we learn in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 22, Psukim 13 to 19. Exactly, just for the background, kiddushin and nisuin are two ceremonies that make up a marriage. Kiddushin, we know, which usually consists of the man giving the woman an object of value, like a ring. That makes the couple legally married in most respects, although they do not live together. Nisuin, which usually consists of the chuppah ceremony, that permits them to live together as husband and wife. In the earlier times, Kiddushin and Nisuin were performed sometime apart, although nowadays we do them one after the other in a single ceremony. So if the husband were to claim that in between Kiddushin and Nisuin, his wife had relations, she committed adultery, he would have to pay 100 shekels. So the Mishnah says, the fine owed by a violator or a seducer or one who slanders his wife, or any debt, even a loan, that is backed by a written court order, that is not cancelled by Shemitah. Why? The fines are not cancelled because they're not loans. A debt backed by the authority of a court order is considered as though it was already collected, and only unpaid debts are cancelled by Shemitah. And the Mefarshim explain what exactly is Chol ma'aseh bedin, any debt, even a loan that is backed by a written court order. The Mefarshim explain a creditor sued in court for a debt. The court ruled that he is owed the money, and they issued a written order for the debtor to pay. That is not canceled by the Shemitah. And a debt backed by the authority of a court order is considered, we said, like it was already collected. When that, meaning the Rab explains, when the debt is backed by a court order, the authority of the court guarantees that the debtor will pay. Because of this guarantee, it is considered as though the debt has already been collected. And since Shemitah cancels only unpaid debts, this debt is not canceled. The Mishnah continues, Hamalveh ala mashkon, if someone lends on collateral, meaning he has given an object that he keeps if the loan is not repaid, Vamoser shtarotav lebedin, or if a creditor gives his loan documents to the court for them to collect the loan for him, Enan mishametin, the loan is not canceled, because these cases do not meet the Torah's guidelines about which loans are canceled. And the Rav points out the Psukim say in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 15, Pasuk 3, V'asher yeh lecha et achicha tashmet yadecha. From that which you have by your brother, your hand shall cancel. Meaning the Torah is teaching us that a loan is canceled only when you, the lender, have money by your brother, which is the borrower. If the lender holds the borrower's collateral, your brother also has money by you, meaning the collateral. This case does not fit the guidelines of the Pasuk, and therefore the loan is not canceled. Because again, the Pasuk says, from that which you have by your brother, your hand shall cancel. But here, your brother also has by you, meaning the collateral. That case, again, does not fit the guidelines of the Pasuk, and therefore the loan is not canceled. Likewise, the Rav says, if one gives the documents to a court, it does not fit the Torah's description, because it's not a loan that you have, it's a loan that the court has, since they are the ones responsible to collect the debt, and therefore these loans are not canceled. That is the end, Rabotai, of today's Mishna Yomi. Everybody should have a Shavua Tov. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.